Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is having a great day today. Happy May 1st. Happy halfway to Halloween for anyone who celebrates. Thank you so much for coming today. I just wanted to, first of all, welcome Christopher Browner. He is a very dear friend of mine and was the moderator of the Dark and Secret Magic launch party in New York City. Chris is a senior editor at the Metropolitan Opera, and today he's here so I can basically interview him, ask him a bunch of questions about the nonfiction writing he does for his job. And I thought this would be such a great topic because the community that I've cultivated on my channel is a bunch of fiction writers, and we have a lot of different types of fiction, different genres, but we really don't have anybody doing nonfiction. And I think there's really a space within our community to hear from someone who that's kind of the main way that they write. So Chris, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm really, really excited too. I'm just going to say hello to everybody who is here so far, or anybody who is responding, because I know some people like to lurk. Not everybody likes to comment, but we have Mullen here. We have Katie. Hi, thank you so much. It was a terrible intro, Katie. I made it, like, it took me so long, and for it to look so bad is so frustrating, but it's fine. Hi, Anna. Hi, Stieg. Hi, Saoirse. Hi, JC. Hi, Jess. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, hold on. I have notes of like the flow of how I wanted things to go. Oh, okay, yes. Oh, this is so good. So before we jump into the kind of Q&A portion of it, where I really start to kind of give you the Inquisition, I'm first going to share the Instagram video because it's so it's so good. So I'm just going to present, share screen. I had it all queued up. Let's see if I have lost track of it though. Oh, no, I haven't. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. Okay. Can you see that? Can everybody see that?
I can see it.
Okay, I'm gonna make it the focus so that way people can just focus on this. So this, everybody, just so you know, this is Chris at action. This is what he does. But let me know if there's an audio issue, if anybody can't hear the audio, but I'm gonna go ahead and play it.
I'm actually 10 years old.
Well, you don't look a day over 95, so you're doing great. How does it feel to be so young and to be performing on the famous Metropolitan Opera stage?
I'm just really happy to be here.
It's a lot with balancing extracurricular school and stuff, but it's worth it. It's so fun.
It's something that I'll keep with me for the rest of my life.
We're backstage during a performance of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte with 3 of the stars of the production. Can you describe your role in the production?
We're the 3 Knaben. We're like really ancient and old.
We're wise. We kind of help the main characters with what to do.
Can you explain why you're so old?
We're old and because we're wise. You can't really be like teenagers or little kids and try to tell these grown adults what to do.
What does it take to get into character?
This is our actual hair. Of course, it's a wig. I think once I just get into costume, it just feels like instantly that I'm just old.
Get off my lawn.
What do you like about singing with each other? What makes this a good team?
I like how we sound together. I also like them a lot, so it's really nice.
Is this the craziest costume that you have ever had to wear?
Yes, definitely 100%.
Is it your favorite costume that you get to wear? It's giving you practice for the future. Now you know what to look forward to.
Oh, it can't be. It's impossible. I'm actually 10 years.
Right. How incredible. I love that. You said, oh, where did we go? Hello?
I'm here.
That's not there we go. That's the layout I'm looking for. Anyway, so that's a little taste. I was utterly delighted when you sent that to me last week. I thought that was one of the most incredible things. You looked so professional.
Well, that's not, and it's funny because you said that's what I do in action. It's rare that I'm actually on camera.
Right.
Typically, yeah, that's only like the second social thing the Met has had me do. There's another one in the works. But really writing, my job is senior editor, and so the vast majority of what I do is writing and a lot of editing, which we probably will talk about less today. But yeah,
today, but we could follow up. We could do everybody let us know if you want to have Chris back on. Even if you don't want it, I'm going to have you back on.
Well, but again, it's not fiction editing, and it's not really even the editing I do is not really even what I would consider nonfiction editing. It's like editing marketing emails or editing quick snappy things. It's really and advice. If that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm hearing
Oh.
I was hearing a bit of an echo. Sorry, that's okay. So actually, on that note, I wanted to kick us off officially by reminding you that at my ADASM Q&A, you started by saying that as long as you knew me, there were two things you knew about me, that I loved books and I loved Halloween. So I'm turning the tables on you and saying that from the moment I met you, which for context to anybody watching who doesn't know, Chris and I met, I think, on the first day of classes freshman year of high school. Yeah. We had English class together that freshman year and Spanish. I forget.
And Spanish. You burned your hand.
Oh my gosh, that's right, on the radiator. I forgot about that. Didn't I just go, is this hot? That's so right. But basically, since the moment I've met you, I've known one thing about you, and that is you have a deep, deep love of opera. So first, would you like to describe your journey to everybody about how you ended up working at your dream opera house, the Met, and what your job there entails?
Sure. Yeah. So my origin story, as I guess we call it these days, is basically when I was 12, I wanted to learn how to play piano just out of on a whim. And I had a lot of different hobby whims throughout my young life. And so my dad said, before we invest in a piano and lessons and yada, 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 let's just see if you even like this thing. And we had this very small, maybe 2-octave at most little play keyboard. And so basically his idea was, see if you like playing the piano. We went to this music store and got the most rudimentary sheet music. I probably even still have it, but I won't go.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, well, no, I don't want to waste our time. But it was the most rudimentary, one note per hand and not at the same time, super rudimentary. And so we bought that, and one of the pieces in there was Mozart Eine kleine Nachtmusik, which is dun 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 dun. Yeah, and it was just the opening theme, the most rudimentary. And my dad said, "Oh, this? That's in the movie Amadeus." And I had seen parts of it. My sister had watched it, and I was like, "Oh, I sort of don't really remember." He said, "Oh, let's get that and watch it." So we watched it, and I was just hooked by the movie, but especially the opera scenes. And so I watched the movie, and the next day I watched the movie again. And then I would just fast forward and watch the opera scenes and then go to the next ones. And so clearly he saw that I was connecting with something. And so eventually he said, let's just go to the Met and see something.
No way. Your first opera ever was at the Met?
Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, that explains it, right? So we saw Die Zauberflöte, the Magic Flute, full German. It was not the production you just saw. That video was about, but it was by Julie Taymor, who did The Lion King on Broadway and Across the Universe, and famous Julie Taymor. And I just loved it. And the other story that we tell is we were way up in the balcony, fourth of 5 balconies at the Met. And I was nervous that I was going to be bored because I was 13 and I was like, I don't know, what am I signing up for? And you've been to the Met, where as the orchestra is tuning, the chandeliers rise to the ceiling as they dim. And as that was happening, my heart started beating out of my chest, and I grabbed my dad's hand and I put it on my heart. It was so silly. And he was like, wow. And I just loved it. I just hooked, and ever since then, just getting more and more into it. I listened to live broadcasts on weeknights all through high school, and I started coming. I used to do the Met. Now Rush Tickets is online, but it used to be in-person Rush Tickets. So I would come on vacation from high school and sit in line for 6 hours, and I met people there. I still have friends who are in their late 70s who I met on the line.
Amazing.
In 2008.
Very New York.
I was 15 years old, and I was staying with these women who I met the year before on a Rush line. And they're like, yeah, just have them come in and stay at our apartment for a week. These 2 different women, I would stay at their apartments, and I would do 3 rushes in a row. And so I just and then I went to school in New York for college. was the opera critic for the newspaper. And so
He's being very casual, everybody. He went to Columbia.
Anyway, so I was very close. And then when I was in college, I thought I was going to be a stage director for opera. That's what I thought I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do at the time, I should say. And I did some directing at school. I did a few summers at the Santa Fe Opera as a props run crew, and which is sort of a backstage good way to see how the sausage is made. I did a summer of assistant directing at Opera North, this small company in New Hampshire. And I just was not cut out for freelance work, which I'm sure many people on here are cut out for freelance work. I was not. I couldn't do it. And so senior year of college, I was like, what can I do that is stable? And I was writing, but it was sort of just good fortune. Out of college, I worked at in an office for the Italian government on the East Side for 9 months, doing food and wine promotions. And then this job at the Met, associate editor, just posted, and it was like, we need a young person who knows how to write and loves opera. It was like they made the job for me, it felt like. And so that was in February 2017, 8 years ago. I got the job, and I've been there ever since and grown. And, our team if other people from the Met are watching, I'm sorry to say, but we always say we have the best team because it's just such a great team. There are other good teams, but it's just such a solid team. Our little team of 5, the editorial team, it's just really solid. I have really, my bosses were great mentors when I was starting out, still are, but especially when I was literally 22 years old.
I know, which felt so old at the time. And now we're like,
yeah, well, it's funny you say that because I was applying for jobs at the Met. I was applying for any job I could get also, like development, special events, rehearsal department. I wasn't getting anything because I was not right. And I remember complaining to my dad, like, the Met will never hire me. It's not going to work out. And he was like, you've been out of college for 6 months. Give it time. And I was like, no, it's never going to happen. And then within a month or two, this job came up and I got it. And I look at it now and I, with the wisdom of a 30-year-old, like, we were so stupid.
Yeah.
The idea that I was complaining at 22 that I was never going to work at the Met is just crazy. So yeah, no, it's really like most of it has been good timing that is completely out of my hands.
And so now 8 years later, you've moved from associate editor to senior editor. What are the mainstays of your day-to-day? Like what are the tenets of your job? And then what's the day-to-day? Oh wait, do I have a banner for this?
What?
Oh, I was, this is the question that we're on.
Oh.
I forgot that I made banners.
I'll start out. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I don't need to do that.
What I say to people is our team, we pitch, write, and or edit all of the content that gets published by the Met, but not always all 3. So
yeah.
I guess I should have brought you have some writing skills, but I don't have a playbill here. But basically, articles. I interview artists fairly regularly and for content, writing articles, promotional articles. So that's sort of the fun, meaty stuff. But it's a lot of editing. It's a lot of we have a new production of X opening. We need to send emails to just like, I'm sure you've gotten the emails saying, coming up at the Met. We edit or write those, but also development, like fundraising asks, and we proofread a lot. My big project that has been mine since I started is I oversee the daily pages of the program. So since we're a rep house, we're doing.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so we're doing 7 performances a week of like up to 4 operas in rotation. Yeah. So
wait, can I ask a non-writing related question? Just a
any
question. So does that mean like the company of actors, is it one set of actors is doing one of those performances, or all the actors switching like week by week, day by day? They're doing Figaro one night and why can't I think of another
Well,
freaking
this
opera?
week-
If
well,
Madame
let's-
Butterfly the next.
No, so this week, like, I think this week, Sunday was Aida. Monday was A Dark Knight. Not The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I was about to say, oh, Christopher
Tuesday,
Nolan.
we opened a new production of Salome. Last night was Barbara of Seville. Today is another day. I don't know.
And are the actors switching between?
So yeah, sorry. And then we'll do Marriage of Figaro later this week, and then we'll do a few this weekend. Sort of. So we have some people who are full-time company members. The chorus, for instance, is a full-time chorus, and depending on the needs of an opera, could be in every performance in a week. It depends. So like Aida is huge, big chorus. Salome, no chorus at all, so that's a night off for them. Last night, Barbara of Seville has just a small men's chorus, so most of the men and all of the women are off. Marriage of Figaro, similarly small chorus, but they also rehearse during the day for other things. So anyway, the chorus is the same. The orchestra plays, I think, at least 4 a week. Don't quote me on that. But so the orchestra is a set orchestra, but there's a more than we need. And then there are what we call associate members of the orchestra who just come in for performance. The principal singers are freelancers largely, and they usually are just contracted for one show at a time. Maybe they'll do 2 or 3 in a season. Okay. And then we do have some company singers who do sort of supporting roles in a number of shows. There was this funny thing. This is such a silly story, but there's this singer, Paul Corona. He's a bass baritone or a bass, and he sings a lot of supporting roles. And it was like over the course of one weekend a few years ago, he played a doctor in 3 different operas in 3 days. Or something. He was like the doctor in Traviata, and then he was the doctor in Dialogues of the Carmelites, and he was the doctor in Fedora. It just happened. Yeah. He sings other than doctor roles. Right now he's singing Antonio in Marriage of Figaro. But what was funny about this, it was like, this is like 2020, early 2023. So we're coming out of the pandemic. His last name is Corona.
Corona, yeah. I don't know if you saw my like kind of gasp when you said his name. I was like, oh.
And he's playing a doctor, and we made a little social media post about being like, isn't it cool that this one artist is playing, not only is he doing 3 roles, they're all doctors. And so then we said, catch Corona on stage this weekend. It was an honest mistake because no one was thinking. But
really funny.
So that's so he's like a company artist. And then obviously like the ushers are they are there the whole time. But the reason that impacts my job is because the playbills are
Sorry, one of my friends is just being sassy. Oh. He's saying, "Isn't that your job to proofread?
Well,
are you in charge of the social media?"
I'm trying not to sell out my colleagues because I had nothing to do with that. Gotcha. But I won't name. I won't out. But I have made mistakes. I mean, none of us are perfect. Far from it.
That's such a great mistake, though. I love that. That's such a good story.
If I can think about the worst mistake, if I should air my dirty laundry, I have to think about.
Oh, absolutely.
None of them I think have been that egregious. They've just been bad. Like,
well, you can take some time to think on it, and if it comes up to you, like while we're going over other things, let us know.
Well, so anyway, the playbills. We have we call it the monthly wrap. It's the color pages that have articles that are all month long, and so like for May right now, I have an interview or an article that I did with a soprano, Sonia Yoncheva, who's coming to sing Queen of Spades. That's the article I wrote for May. But then the daily pages change per day because the performances change. And people have said, why don't you just have one set of pages for all of the Marriage of Figaro's? Well, because the date changes and sometimes it starts at different times. The artists change. So for instance, we have 2 full, complete different casts of principals for Marriage of Figaro that will swap starting on Saturday. So those have to change. Their bios that'll all change. We run a photo of the production as part of our layout, and sometimes we have to open a show before we have photos ready, and so we'll switch photos mid-run. We have donors who will like underwrite a week or they'll underwrite a day. And so that has to change. So
Oh my gosh, and you have to like display their name in the program notes?
Yeah, well, we have like
Wow.
it depends on what level of donor and all of that. But I coordinate that whole process. So I start the process collecting, a synopsis that, I don't write a lot of it. We have a synopsis for La Boheme that we've used for decades. We have a program note that we have been using for the last few seasons. We have all sorts of things. So I bring it all together. I get all the credit information from all the different teams. I write all the singers' bios. That's another kind of writing I do.
Yeah.
And then I work with a designer at Playbill to lay it out, proofread it, and then circulate it with all the other teams to make sure that the music prep credits are right, and that the development credits are right, and that the assistant director credits are right. That's all before the show opens.
Yeah.
And then I work a week in advance proofing next week's program. So I was working on next week's Barber of Seville today.
Wow.
So that's like one of my main jobs, but a lot of editing. And I probably am forgetting. And then we also create, and this I do have a prop. Our team at the beginning of a season creates this season book, which is a very nice promotional book.
Are these the things that they sell for like, $10 at the entry when you're walking in?
Well, these are nicer. Yeah, these are nicer. These are probably $25.
Woo!
But they're really nice.
It's so expensive, you guys.
They're really nice.
They're beautiful.
They're really
beautiful.
And where did I write in this? What did I write in this? Oh, I wrote the piece on Hamlet, I think. So we did this opera about Hamlet, and I wrote this article.
Wow.
So anyway, but and crazy. I also shouldn't reveal this publicly, but we basically put this together in a month and a half. Like, it's crazy how, but it's the team.
That's what time in our high school yearbook. Like, we had a full year to get the yearbook done. But you guys are professionals. That's the difference. You're used to it. You know how to get it done. You can get it done.
We're professional. We're not high school students who have classes and stuff. Like, this is our summer project.
Okay. Is your next one coming up soon, or is this the one for this season?
No, this is from 2021. I just pulled whatever I had. No, we'll start it after. So the season ends June 7th, and then basically late June, early July. Well, we'll start talking about it sooner than that. But the writing is in earnest is in July and early August, and then there's like a few frantic weeks of laying it out and proofing and all of that.
Oh my gosh. And I'll be working on my manuscript in a frantic, frenzied state in the summer too. So we can, commiserate. We had a question from the chat. Stieg wants to know, what is your favorite part of your job? And on the flip side, I would like to know, what is your most stressful part of your job?
Sure. My favorite part of my job is working at the Met. Like, I love it.
Just like the concept.
Yeah. Well, the idea that I get to work in the, I think, world's greatest opera house. Obviously, there are great opera houses throughout the world, but I'm, partial to the Met. Every single day,
yeah.
I can go, and I have to have the stability of a full-time job, but in the arts, like, no one has that. When I was going to school and I was a music major, like, you could see the wheels turning behind people's eyes when I'd say, like, oh, I'm a music major. And the question of, like, what are you going to do with that?
Right.
Like, what a waste of your parents' hard-earned dollars to send you to an Ivy League school to be a music major. Like, wow, okay. But I'm doing it. Like, I'm very fortunate to actually be using that. And I rely on the education, what I learned, my music classes all the time. So that is really my favorite part. The other thing I love about beyond just working at the Met is my job, because so much of what I'm doing is making sure that other departments are represented correctly. And also just editing many different departments' work, is I get to connect with so many different or parts of the company, which is great. So I really feel tied in. And then recently, the other thing that I took on is we do like 8 to 10 live operas in movie theaters on Saturday afternoons throughout the season, which is so, like, even if you're not in New York, you can see the Met pretty much anywhere, especially in the United States, but we're in almost 60 countries, like everywhere. And so a few years ago, I just added being a production assistant just because I thought it would be fun. But there was staffing changes recently. So now I work in the production truck during intermissions with the script, like taking notes and then redistributing an edited script. And then during the live interviews, advising on, if we need to skip. It sounds more crazy than it is
That
because
sounds crazy.
I'm new and there's a whole team, but it's like I'm in that facet, which is completely different. The most stressful is, I think the most stressful is people think of the Met as like this huge, august institution, but like the administration, like the actual staff is fairly small. So the idea that, our editorial team is now like technically like 4.5. We were 5, but then the head of the team is now consulting. So he's just on certain projects. And then one of those 5 is a photo editor. So he's not writing. So basically 3.5 of us, there's just a lot sometimes that we have to all juggle. And then there obviously so this book like is basically written by 4 people with a photo editor and then a graphic design team of 4.
Wow.
Over the summer. So there's just, sometimes there are periods where there's just a ton to do. And so the stress is just trying to juggle it all. And I guess the other stressful thing is, which will make sense, it's stressful when I'm the person who has to approve something because it's true that we all see it. And so, yes, like in some ways a mistake is shared by all, but in other ways it's not. It's the person who says approved who really bears the brunt. And I've approved things that had mistakes, and it, that drives me crazy. I'm a little better about it than when I was new. You
took it really hard.
I was like, I don't know if I should even work here because I'm too close to this thing. And every time I make a mistake, like it kills me. Fortunately,
how would you say you built up your resiliency then over the course of your career? Because I think that's such a thing for writers, is dealing with that insecurity.
I'm hoping not to say this, and like, I know hubris is going to get me, but like, I think it's a combination of things. One, it's a bunch of things. One, I made enough mistakes, nothing like, not the end of the world, and I lived. So that was one. You just get through it. 2, I have very supportive supervisors who, I'm sure when they were my age, made mistakes. So they put it into perspective, and they didn't like bite my head off.
Right.
And I think I also realized that as long as I acknowledged that I was the one who made the mistake, they wouldn't care. That's not they wouldn't care, but it was like, the more important thing is that you admit that you made the mistake, not that the mistake happened. And like, so some of the mistakes I made, I'll just like, one of the worst ones I ever did was there was a donor who,
no,
and nothing was huge. No, see, you're expecting this crazy story.
I know. I just like, if it's like you spelled their name wrong or something, I know how persnickety donors can be. So I was like, I got really scared for you all of a sudden. I was like,
Nothing really bad happened. Like, I'm still working there. No, basically what happened is we have some performances where the donor, like, because they're at a certain level, they get a night dedicated to them as a thank you for the donor. It's just a little lockup above the secondary credits. It says tonight's performance is dedicated, blah, blah. And also this has nothing to do with me. They get tickets to the performance. They get dinner at the restaurant. They get a box. They can bring their friends. It's just a nice,
love a box.
It's a nice night. And then the development team prints out a page of the program and gets all the performers to sign it. They frame it with a photo of the show. They send it as a thank you. It's a whole thing. So my component is making sure it's in the playbill. And somehow I forgot to put it in.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I had been at the Met. This was in 2018. So I'd been there for a year and a half.
Okay.
And I forgot to put it in. And we were at, this was the worst part. We were at a cast party for an opening of a show. Everyone's in a great mood. And someone from development comes in and is like, by the way, I haven't gotten the proof yet for that thing next week. And I knew I screwed up. But so the worst, we got it printed. We had to do a reprint. It was like $2,700. And it happened. That was bad. But even then, I wasn't yelled at. It was like, it's wrong.
It's not like it went to print and the donors got there and their name wasn't in there. Like, it got fixed.
Yeah, but it cost almost $3,000.
I know, but like, who knows what their donation
We
was?
paid
Actually,
us.
yeah. Wait, is that something I'm allowed to ask? How much does it cost to
I don't know.
sponsor
I
a
literally
night
don't
event?
know.
Okay,
don't
because now I'm like, hi, like anybody want to go in and sponsor? Like, guys, group trip to New York.
Yeah, but it's not for just one off. It's because they're members of a certain group, they're part of the Council for Artistic Excellence. This literally, I have no, like, this isn't out of my wheelhouse, the donation part.
Got it. Okay.
But, and it's just a thank you for them for being supporters.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to I mean, that was bad. So those are the things. I've made enough mistakes and lived. I was well supported. But I think the other thing, and this is where I like knock on wood, is I do think I've gotten better at the job. So I do make fewer, though not no, mistakes. And the other thing which gave me perspective, which I don't know if there's a corollary for you, but I have learned that one never sees mistakes from above. One only sees the mistakes from the people below. So like, I don't see my boss's mistakes. My boss sees mine. I don't know if that makes sense, but so go ahead.
I'm hearing you. Because like basically it helps give you perspective. If you're like, even though you're not seeing those mistakes, that doesn't mean they're not occurring, and it's just
right. So there's this moment when I was the junior member thinking I'm the only one making mistakes. And it's like, no, but everybody's seeing the mistakes below, but you don't really, I'm not reviewing the work of my supervisors. So, and they're not going to tell me. Yeah. They're not going to be like, hey, by the way, Christopher, I made this mistake. It's embarrassing no matter who you are. So I wasn't seeing them making mistakes, and they're making fewer because they're, have seniority, or not seniority, they have experience. I think that's the most stressful part is like, but to answer your question, the most stressful part is when I have to approve something. And I know it's on me.
Yeah, this is like bleeding in a little bit into the next question that I have, that it's like, we're going to really deep dive into your process, but I want to ask it now because we're so on topic. In terms of, you saying, and I don't think it's a hubristic thing at all to honor the fact that you are deep into your career at this point and have experience.
We're only 30, Wallace.
I know, but like, you can say you're on a solid foundation at this point, so I guess kind of comparing, like not a bird's eye view, but just in the form of like catching mistakes, part of your process, what do you feel like is different now versus 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I guess, that helps you with that?
So I think it's two things. I think I've developed an instinct. Okay. Like I just develop an eye for what things are supposed. You look at, so we do about 200 performances of about 20 operas a year. So I've now been doing this for 8 years, take away the pandemic year, so 7. Like that's almost 1,500 programs that I've proofed. And the format is the same, it's just with different information. So one is I just develop an eye for it. And I'll tell you, when I started at the Met, I did not know the difference between a hyphen, an N dash, and an M dash. No,
I still don't. So that's good.
So now I know a lot. I didn't know the difference between smart quotes and not smart quotes, and an apostrophe versus a straight up and down. And now it drives me nuts in the real world. I'll be at movies. I was at a movie, and you know how there's like at the end of the movie, there's like words, and or it's like not words, it's like a recap, like based on a true story. And I'll be like, that's not an apostrophe. It's not smart quote. It drives everyone crazy. Like I can't help myself.
I love that, so what I'm hearing is, because my first printing of Vidasm was riddled with errors because I don't even know why. So what I'm hearing is that I need to send you my proof pages. Next time I have a book out.
Remembered. I don't know. Well, I don't remember if I found them in there.
Well, because you were reading an advanced reader copy, so I told you that was going to have errors, but they've been
I haven't read this copy.
That's probably first printing, so that probably.
I've never actually read this copy because the copy I read was an advanced reader.
Well, you should. Well, I was about to say go out and buy a new one, but you don't need to. But I will send you one that has the USA Today bestseller banner on it, because those are the ones that have been fully proofed and updated. And as far as I am aware, are error-free to the capacity where nobody has found one in months. So, and which is my only hope. But I don't know if I told you this. Sorry to get off topic, but I literally had a reader email me saying, hey, I just want to let you know I found several errors. I'm also emailing your publisher, but it reflects on you as well. So you needed to know. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Well, I think I said to you, by the way, can I just pause and say that was the most deft brag that you just, I'll send you the one that has the USA Today bestseller printed on it.
Yes. Yes. If you, you know what, I'm gonna, you know, I'm not gonna try and hide that. I'm not about you going, oh, I went to school in New York. Like, no, I'm a USA Today bestselling author. I'm thrilled by that fact, and I'm going to acknowledge it. And because I think, kind of like you, I think that maybe some of the people watching are picking up on this a little bit, that you and I, both as individuals, have a tendency to try and lower our level of like, oh, it's not that great. Oh, this is da da da. I still need help. I still experience. I'm going to knock on wood. I'm trying to be humble, da da da. And I think that there are some things that you should just acknowledge. You literally got your dream job, you know, less than a year outside of college. My book became a USA Today bestseller. Like, we have these successes, and we should, I think, definitely grab onto them. Even if you're a fiction writer or nonfiction writer.
So, but what were you? Oh, I think I was just gonna say, when I read the advanced reader, I remember thinking like, I think I asked you, if I catch anything, should I tell you? And you're like, oh, by the time we get to the talk, it'll already be printed. It'll be too late. So
yeah.
So I think if I saw anything, I think I said, I'm not gonna handle this. I'll let it ride.
No, that's fair. But I've learned my lesson now, because I just realized that no matter how many times I get an eye on my manuscript, I don't know the rules of grammar enough. Anyway, we don't need to get into it.
But that's the other thing with us. I think that another struggle, it's not the most stressful thing, but it's just a struggle, is we don't really have a proofreader outside of editors. So we have a system where someone really shouldn't. We have a whole system for everything we do, where there's like, basically a job comes in regardless of who submits it from around the building, and they usually submit copy or the request for us to write copy, but then someone from our team is assigned as the editor, and that person basically shepherds it from the Word doc into layout. And then we have an online workflow, you know, project management software that you can track, and there's all these steps. And so we make sure that the editor and the graphic designer are happy with it. And then the job owner comes in and looks at it. But at the end, it's proofread. And the rule that we try to stick by is that the editor who's shepherding it cannot be the proofreader.
That's so smart.
Because the other thing I'm sure you know is like, our brains are filling in what we mean to say. So that's really tricky, is I can't proofread my own stuff. But what's difficult with something like this is we're all reading it. And so we don't have a fresh proofer on this. We just can't. And there's just not really time, given how quick the process is done. So I know that there are problem mistakes. And the other thing, but what's nice about us, my work versus yours, I don't just mean nonfiction, like, we are only printing a program every week, like a week in advance. And so if I catch a mistake in the second one, I can change it for the rest of the run. So it doesn't, like, and also because there's an opera the next day, mistakes are usually like, there's always another performance. And so it does give you, not little is really set in stone. This we do one printing of. And so edits in here, we can't make. Though we have a web version of them, which we obviously can change. We put them on the web after. And we take a lot of these articles and put them in the programs over the course of the year, and we can make edits. But with the daily pages, I don't aspire to make mistakes, believe me. I realize I don't want to sound cavalier, like I don't care, because obviously I care. But that also is a little bit of proof.
Yeah, you've let go of the internal pressure that you carried when you first started.
Not all of it. I mean, we all have some of it, and we should. But I don't. I would be upset for like 2 days when I would make a mistake at the beginning. And now I'm upset for 2 days if I make like a series of mistakes. And I'm like, what's happening to me?
Gotcha.
And burnout's real for us, because there's always deadlines.
Wait, that's a great question. What does burnout look like for you? Because I think with fiction writers, especially like when I wasn't contracted, I kind of allowed myself to be controlled by burnout and just like languish, but obviously you're contracted,
Yeah,
you
we can't.
have to get it out.
It's
what do you do?
hard. And I don't think it's probably as extreme as other, I don't know. I haven't experienced it from the other perspective, but I will say, so we're going to talk at some point tonight about this Marriage of Figaro program note that I wrote. And writing that was hard. Well, it was just a lot because what does that mean? I usually write, I didn't mention this in my job description, but I write 2 in-depth program notes now a season.
Yes.
Which was just something which I never thought I was going to be able to do. And then I was talking to someone at Carnegie Hall and about him writing program notes. And I was like, I could never do that. And he's like, you should just do it. You can do it. And I talked to my boss and he's like, yeah, you can do it. You're totally ready. And so
I asked everybody what a program note is.
Sure. So the way that the Met, our programs work is there's a title page, there's a cast list, there's a bunch of credits. We give the synopsis of the opera because we don't believe in spoiler free, like it's opera. Like you know the ending before it even starts. Then we have this breezy 2-page section called In Focus, which it's like a paragraph about the music, a paragraph about the setting, like a few lines about the creators, and like a paragraph about the history of it at the Met. There's a little intro. And I was explaining this to someone recently, like basically as one works the way through the program, it's getting more and more in depth depending on how the audience member wants to engage with the piece. So there's a synopsis, very perfunctory, just this is what happens. Then there's a little bit of sort of Reader's Digest. And then we have a 3 to 4 page through written essay called the program note, which is
how many words typically?
So I think usually we could go as few as maybe 13 to 14. We never want to do more than 2,000, which compared to a book, it's very short. I always write.
Which is tough. Like that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about today is the idea of having to constrain yourself.
Yeah. The question of who the audience is for a 4-page program note is something I think we should talk about. But anyway, to talk about Burnout, like I've now been writing these 2 program notes, and typically I write one in the fall and one in the spring, and I take a break not a break, but I'm not working on a program note. This season, just how the operas worked out, we don't write 18 new program notes a year. First of all, we usually just get them from freelancers. We don't really write them internally. My boss, actually, before he worked at the Met, was writing program notes, and then now he works at the Met, and he's too busy to write program notes, though he wishes he could, but there's just, it's just time. And he has, a personal life and a young family and all that. But he's been there for 9 years, and he's been commissioning program notes over the course of the last decade. And but once we have one we like, once we have a La Boheme program note that we like, we're going to do La Boheme every season. We're not going to recommission. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we kind of have a library of program notes. And
okay, I was going to ask.
The standard rep at the Met is not like we go through it. The standard works in almost a few year cycle. Like we're going to do Bohème every year. We're going to do Carmen every 2 seasons. We're going to do Madame Butterfly every 2 seasons. And there's only so many operas.
So many good ones.
Well,
so many worthy of the Met.
So many that are, how can we say this? There are the popular good operas. They take up a certain chunk of the season and they come back. And so there are only so many program notes that we need to commission, and it gets smaller and smaller as the seasons progress since my boss started. And so this season, it just so happened that the ones we had a need for were all in the spring. There may have been one that was like the very beginning of the season. And I said, after having just finished work on the season book and juggling 3 operas opening in the 3 first days of the season, I can't juggle that all. So I said, I'll do 2 in the spring, and I'll just stagger the work. Like they were technically due like 3 weeks apart. I can't write a program note between researching and writing in 3 weeks. So I said, I'll just, I knew in August what my assignments were for March and April. So I said, okay, I'll just spread it out. And I stuck to my schedule, but just doing them back to back was it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I had work. I mean, I don't do any of the work on the program notes during the in-person hours. Like
Okay.
it's all
Wow.
outside of the work hours,
Wow.
for various reasons. But so my regular job plus doing these 2 program notes, by the time I was writing the Marriage of Figaro one, I was just like, and what I sent you some of these. I don't think we'll have time to get to them, but I also was writing promotional pieces about the Marriage of Figaro, like, because it was coming up. And so I was writing about basically for the March playbills, the wrap, I did a quick, like 450 word comparison saying like, we're doing the Marriage of Figaro and the Magic Flute at the same time. You can see these 2 great Mozart operas at this season. Then in April, we were doing the Marriage of Figaro and the Barber of Seville, which are both based on plays by Beau. Yeah, so Beaumarchais
is a sequel to the other.
Right. Though technically, so Beaumarchais wrote the Barber of Seville and then wrote the sequel, The Marriage of Figaro, even though Mozart wrote the Marriage of Figaro before Rossini. But anyway, the idea was we're doing these 2 operas based on Beaumarchais. They also happen to be masterpieces this month. And that was about 1,000 word, sort of talking about the history of Beaumarchais, but also marketing promotional. So I go from 450, including something about Marriage of Figaro, to 1,000, which was half Marriage of Figaro, to 2,000, just about Marriage of Figaro. And I was writing the same sentences over and over because like it's talking about the Marriage of Figaro. And so that was hard. And the program note was the one I cared about the most because it was the most substantial. And so then this feeling of like, oh, I used up my good line in the whole piece.
You're not allowed to self-plagiarize. You can't.
Well, I mean, there's a good chance that someone will read them both.
That's fair.
And so, but it was a good exercise to push myself.
Absolutely.
So, and then once I submitted the draft, another thing we'll talk about, my boss was not thrilled with the first half of the note. Not that it was bad, but it was just, I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't like the writing was horrible, but it was just clunky and like stodgy. And
if you want to just really quickly give us the general timeline, then I would love to have us jump into the analysis of your draft, and not the draft.
The point about Burnout is like when I got the message from him being like, this is the second half is great, but the first half needs work and it needs to be done in the next 2 days. I was like,
in the next 2 days, you had to do a full rewrite.
I basically had well, I don't know what counts as full. You saw the 2. Like I had to go from the draft you saw to the new draft.
And that was what's so interesting, and we'll talk about it. But I remember thinking, like, I read the published draft first, and I was like, or published article first. And I was like, this is stunning, this is glorious. And then I read the rough draft, and I was like reading the first paragraph, and I was like, oh wow, like this really has like there's a big shift, a big change. So I wanted to kind of go over that. So that's interesting to know that you also got feedback from your editor.
Do you agree that the first one was worse?
The second one is phenomenal, is how I'm going to phrase it.
The published one.
The published one is amazing.
I mean, I have this feeling I realize we're like many tangents, but
This is so chill for a normal stream of mine. Like you don't even understand how professional we're being right now. Like,
I'm so sheepish about. I am so sheepish about like, and I don't know how it works in like the book world, but like I always feel a little embarrassed if my editor, which is my boss, like. Rewrites a sentence well, because then I'm like, oh, I didn't write that. That's not my sentence.
Oh my god, I'm always thrilled. I'm like, oh, so I don't have to do that.
But you have like 300 pages. I have 4, and so like, and so it's that feeling of. I guess that's my question to you. I know you're asking me questions, but how much does an editor, in your experience, like rewrite a line?
So actually, my editors never rewrite lines unless it's like a copy edit and it's like I have completely bungled a like hanging phrase or something, and she'll be like, this is how this needs to be written. But my developmental editor, my main editor at Alcove, is always just giving suggestions, thinking, and also this editor, Katie Ann Wrights, is always telling me I need to have stronger verbs. That's one of my weakest elements of my writing, is my weak verbs. So often Katie will give me a verb like suggestion that I will then usually incorporate. But yes.
See,
so very rarely are like, I'm the kind of editor who's like, write it this way, do this. Like I think a lot of editors are a little more respectful than I am, where they're like, we're going to be slightly hands off. We understand this is your creative work. Whereas I'm like, this is ours now. This belongs to all of us.
I think it's slightly different from our work because one, this is my boss, not my editor, right? Like, and he is better given, you know, he's 9 years older, 8 years older, like been in it longer. So he's just a better writer.
Well, and it's a product that you guys are creating.
And it's a product from the Met. So
Yeah.
it's not, I'm not selling a book. And so the idea is like, it's my neck on the line or not. It's really the Met is offering this thing to the public. So it has to be the best it can be. And
then we have, wait, I love that. I love you are being forced to accept changes. I am so thrilled to accept changes. And Katie Ann says, oh, my editor gives suggestions. I never take them.
I wouldn't say that I'm forced. Usually they're just right. There was one time with this Marriage of Figaro one where I think he went, I felt like it was too much. And he said, if you think this is too much, we don't have to go this far. Okay. And it's not like whole paragraphs. But for instance, and we can get to it at some point. And what I sent you, the Word document draft and the final.
Why don't we I can just open it.
Well, I'll answer. Well, let me tell you I'll answer the program note question about the process.
Okay, sure. Let me get
that one. Just so you know. So okay. I think it basically takes me about 2 months to do a program. So the first month to 6 weeks is research.
Which what does that entail for you? Yeah. Like how from like
I'm getting there, Wog.
No, I'm just directing like
you know, I pulled together
your assignment. What do you sit down and what's the first thing you sit down and do?
The first thing I do is collect research materials. So I have my own. I mean, many of the books here are some of these are fiction, but the middle is nonfiction.
Except for my book right there.
Well, you said this is nonfiction.
No, it's so true.
No, but that's just for display purposes. And there's above me, there's a whole shelf of composers. And so I will pull the books that I have to see what I like. And I also have we have books at work that I can pull from. Okay. And then so I pull those. Basically, I make a stack of any book that I think may reference the opera at all.
Amazing.
Recently I've taken so Cambridge and English National Opera, they put out, I don't have them here because they're at work, but like they'll put out a book of essays on a specific opera. So I usually buy that. So I buy those. I take whatever books that I have, research books. And then do you remember JSTOR?
Yes. The research, all colleges.
It's the primary source and journal database. Yeah. And I still have access to JSTOR through my Columbia alumni network, like Columbia alumni privileges. So I go on JSTOR and I find journal articles and throughout the last 150 years.
Amazing.
Now it can get dangerous because I always over research, but I can way overdo it. Yeah. So I'm getting better at knowing what I need.
Okay.
And it depends on the opera. So one of the operas I did a few years ago was I did an opera, Lohengrin, which is this Wagner opera. There was a lot. Then I did Fidelio, this Beethoven opera. There was good stuff, a good amount. But then something like Nozze di Figaro, basically I could be reading for years about Mozart. Yeah. It's such a masterpiece, so influential, and there's just so much literature on it that I just had to cut it off at some point. So I go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you said that this is all stuff that you do not while you're on the clock
Yeah,
for the
none of
Met.
it.
So what is your like timeline? Like, do you say 1 hour a day for these 6 weeks, or is it do you not
No,
really look at yourself in that way?
no, I don't. It's more like weekends and
Okay.
evenings, but it's not. Yeah, it's not that regimented because my schedule
Okay.
is, I do all sorts of stuff. Go see shows, do this, do that. I can't. Every day in my life is different. Sometimes I do live stream. First time.
Special
So I get the research and then I read it over the course of 6 weeks. And usually the book that I read first is this. I have this Milton Cross who was many years ago, like from the 30s through the 60s or the 70s, was the radio host at the Met, and just he has this encyclopedia of composers' lives. And so it's like a short gloss, not short, but it's probably a 10-page little mini bio, and it talks about the major works. So I'll just read that first just to center myself in the composer's life. I'm not going to read a full biography because that takes too long for a 4-page program note, but just to sort of understand the whole picture and then zoom into the period. And then I read a bunch, and usually there's a second period of the research where if the same article or the same author is being referenced by multiple sources, I usually find that article and then read that too. That happened with Marriage of Figaro. Like a few articles were mentioning these other 2 articles. So I went on JSOR and found them and read them. And I handwrite notes on all of I either printouts or the books. I handwrite them.
Are you writing all in a single journal that you like designate for this task, or do you have like
no, literally on the sources. Like I don't write. Yeah, so as I go along, so I'm underlining, I'm scribbling things. There's one line, which in the Marriage of Figaro program that I just wrote, and it was slightly edited, but the idea, there's a line in the Marriage of Figaro program note where I say what I had originally said, which got right now what it reads as is, if Susanna is the opera's center of gravity, the Countess is
the beating heart.
Beating heart. What I had but I scribbled in a margin. What I had said is, Susanna is the fulcrum, the Countess is the beating heart, or something like that. But that was just a note, and I just put it in. And so my boss changed fulcrum to center of gravity, but it's beating heart. It was just something I scribbled in a margin. It doesn't normally happen that way. The turns of phrase are not usually that. They're not usually that ready-made. So that's 6 weeks of research. And then I do like a week. Usually I need 2 weekends with a week in the middle to transcribe all of my notes into a Word doc. And I discovered this year how good the dictation tool is. So I just sit on the couch and I just read my notes.
Yeah. What tool do you use? Just the one built into your computer?
Word. I am not a fancy writer person. Like I have no fancy tools. And so I read my notes out loud and yeah, I do write in the books, which
I'm so pro writing in books. I'm right there with you.
But which I never did through college, and then I started doing. But there were some I will say there were some books for there was this this Mozart book that I used. So this was so weird. So it's funny. Edward J. Dent has this book, Mozart's really cool. Operas, A Critical Study. You can see how old the book is.
Yeah.
And so I was reading other books about Mozart, and they kept saying like, oh, as Edward J. Dent said, he was the pioneer of the early 20th century Mozart studies. And I just happened to already own the book because in 2013 for Christmas, a family friend found it and just said, this is a very old opera book from 1947. I thought it would be interesting for you to read how they analyzed Mozart's operas all those years ago. A great book for your opera library. Like in 2013, this was gifted to me. I never opened it because I don't just read, because I don't read.
I hear you.
I don't read opera analysis for fun. Like I'm at this point in my life, I did that early on, and so I had it, but I kept it, and it was always on the shelf. And then I went, as I was pulling books out, I went, oh, this is a Mozart book. I'll add that to the pile. And then I'm reading like, oh, Edward J. Dent, Mozart operas, like critical study. This is one of the foundational texts, and I own it already. So
yeah, that's amazing.
My point is, it was old enough and fragile enough that I made photocopies, and I wrote on the photocopies, because this book I wasn't going to write in.
That's fair. I wanted to fight back against J.C. Carpenter, who says that writing in books is a form of defilement. I believe that it is part of the contribution to the book's history as an object of human use.
Yeah, I do think it's engaging with the author. It's like a conversation.
Yes, I so agree. I think that by writing in a book, you are then a collaborator of the art. Like, so.
Yeah, and I don't think. I hope this doesn't.
Say what you gotta say.
I don't want to offend anybody. The book itself is not the piece of art, right? It's the ideas that are the piece of art, and this is just the medium to transmit the author's creativity and genius.
That's true.
So, like, it's just a paper, and it's just ink. It's the ideas that the paper is trying to transmit. And so to me, and you can always get another one. Like, I don't know. And that's like, I love the fact that my cookbooks have food stains on them.
Yes.
Because it's meant to be used. And I'll dog ear recipes that I like.
To me,
it's a tool, not the art in and of itself.
I think a cookbook with grease stains is a cookbook in its final form. I think a cookbook without food stains has not achieved self-actualization.
And especially a cookbook. And a cookbook, but also, analytical texts. They're not, they intend, there's a intended purpose, which is knowledge transfer, not aesthetics. Anyway,
yes.
So I'm sorry to.
No, I love it. We got a little controversy
for disagreement, but anyway. So, and I saw you put up the thing about the comment about notepads, but then it separate. First of all, I'm underlining a lot of quotes, so it's just quicker. Like, the idea to me of trying to read a piece, and every time I read something, I have to stop and write it down. It will break the flow.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is active reading, but also when I go back to the notes, if I don't understand the quote, I can then read the context, which is completely separate if you rip it from its context. But anyway, so I dictate the notes, which has the double bonus of one being much quicker than hand typing it. But actually, I have to speak it out loud. So it really drives home the point, because I have to verbalize it.
Yeah.
So I do that. And then while I'm doing all of this, it's coalescing somewhere, and I'm getting ideas about how I want to structure it. And then once I start transcribing the notes, like, I'm thinking about it all the time. I do a lot of thinking about it while I'm running. And I have this happened with Marriage of Figaro and the Fidelio program notes this year, where I'd be running, and I run for an hour every other day. So, like, I have a lot of thinking time, and I would, like, write the whole thing in my head, and I'd be like, wow. Well, I think I write it in my head. So I'm like, I really know this. And I'm like, that's a great, and I'll workshop a paragraph for 15 minutes while I'm running. And I'm like, I've got it. And then I go to sit down, and I was like, how did I say it? It sounded so good. And then
that's me in the shower. I'm like, when I'm in the shower, I'm at my most, I need to invent, or not invent, I'm sure it exists. I need to find a way to bring my computer into the shower, because I'm at my most creatively engaged in the shower. I come up with full scenes, full, like, notes of dialogue, everything. And then I go to sit it down, and I'm like,
at least for me, and I don't know if this is for you, I think what I'm actually doing is my mind is glossing over the parts that aren't worked out. So I feel so confident, because I don't actually have to look at every single word. I get the thrust of it. So then I have the notes. I write an outline, like, literally I do one bullet per paragraph, and it's usually just topics. It's not even, I don't know if I still have an outline from any of these, but and I do it on my notes app usually, just because
I love my notes app. And
Because-
Katie Ann says, relatable, that it's for her when she's driving. She's getting everything sorted, but can't get it
And
out
then it's
quick.
not done. But I
Nope.
feel so confident. I don't know if I...
Yep. JC, exactly. It's like, nope, actually, don't have it. Don't have it at all.
And I feel like I delete a lot of notes once they're done. So I don't even think I kept an outline. But it's really just like,
Fine.
you know, so for instance, Fidelio, which we don't have to get into, but the first paragraph is like, puts it in context with Beethoven's Eroica, which he was writing at the same time. So it's like watershed moments, Eroica, but also Fidelio. Beethoven arrives in Vienna in 1792 or whatever. I forget the exact. And then it was like, talk about music. And it's very general outline. But I've thought about it a lot by then. And then I take a weekend and then I write the whole thing. I need 2 weekends with a week in between.
And do you like, is it your dedicated task for the day, or like, are you doing nothing else that weekend?
Well, I try to keep those 2 weekends free, but I just overschedule myself so much. But my goal is wake up on Saturday, and over the course from Saturday to Sunday night, I will write a draft and write it. And I hate it. I mean, the writing's never good. It's not good.
It's the same world that we exist in.
Writing is the same. It's never good, and I procrastinate a lot, and I'll write a line, and then I'll be like, I need a break, and I'll walk around, and I'll eat a snack, and I'll be like, but by the end of that Sunday, if I have something, even if it's bad, and I haven't looked at the rest of it, I feel like, okay, I got this.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the week, where I can find time, if I can just revise it all once, I'm on schedule. And then the next weekend I revise over and over and over, and it's just a churn. And then usually it's due on the Monday, and then the Monday morning I like wake up and I revise it a few more times and send it. And then my boss reads it, and then he has feedback, and then we make the edits. But I really have settled into a thing where before it's written, I'm confident. First draft, I lose all my confidence. By the end of the second draft, I feel better. Third draft, I hate it. And then I'm pretty much on a slow climb of every single time. And basically, once I'm in that final weekend, it's like I just start from the beginning and I revise and I leave the parts that I'll go back to that. And every pass, something gets smoothed out, and then there's fewer things and fewer things and fewer things, and then it coalesces. At least that's how it's worked so far.
In between your editor going over, you submitting revisions, how long, like how tight is that deadline? Like, for example, you said Figaro needed to be significantly restructured. How much, I know you said you only had 2 days. Once you turned it in after those 2 days, how long until it went to print?
Wait, after what 2 days?
You said your editor got back to you.
So basically I submitted it. It all depends. And it all depends, like we have so much to do. And he has even way more, because this is just like 4 pages in a sea of things that the Met puts out.
Right.
And it's not really even the Met's priority, because the thing I love about it, but also the thing that makes it less priority, is like, we're not selling tickets with the program notes because they've already bought the ticket by the time they're reading the note.
Right.
We technically work in the marketing and communications department. So a big priority is making sure that the ticket sales emails are going out, and that the ads are getting done, and that the rest of the program is getting, like, there's just a lot of
capitalism coming in.
It's just, I mean, I don't know, we're nonprofit. There's not much capital, I can tell you.
Fair.
But it's just,
that's fair.
People can't read the program note if they haven't bought a ticket. So you got to sell the ticket first.
Yeah.
And I need to get paid somehow. So, but, and also the thing that I think, not cursed, but he's confident that I'll do a decent job. So then the fact that he kind of was like, I don't have to worry about that too much. And then it happened to be like, it was due. And then we just got really busy, and he kept being like, I'm going to get to it today. And then just things came up between work and whatever. And so that was a particularly tight one. And it just so happened that the tight turnaround also needed more edits than it normally does.
Got it.
But yeah, so the reason that we had such turnaround problems is because basically it had to get printed. So it just had to be done.
Yeah. Well, on that note, and I'm going to highlight her question, but also kind of direct you into the kind of final stage of this session that we're having. But Katie Ann is asking for you to decide, how do you decide what is important to put in the program notes? But hold on though, because I want to have this on the docket, but okay. I want to have you first go over the program notes for the Marriage of Figaro because they are so great.
Oh, thank you.
Let me present. Sorry. Share screen. Share screen makes me jump through a million hoops. That's my book. Don't want to do that.
I can read your book.
Nope. Hold on. That's the end of your program notes.
Oh,
what?
You want the draft first?
No, this isn't the draft. Is this the draft?
No, you said that's not it, but this is the note.
This is the note. Yes. Yeah. I think from our timing perspective, I think let's go over the note and you can talk about differences in the draft. And also I know I talked about you reading the entire thing.
Which I don't need to do.
I would love to hear it all in your voice though. I think it is so well done. And it's just, I mean, it's
I can.
2, 3 and a half pages. You can do it. You can do it. I'm going to settle in. Everybody get ready.
And I just, I'll read it. So you want me to read it now?
Yeah.
I'll just address, I won't answer the whole question that Katie Ann.
Go for it.
But I won't answer, but I'll just say that it dovetails into what I said earlier about who the audience is. Basically, which we can talk about when you tell me when you want to talk about it, but it's the figuring out who the audience is kind of dictates. I will read it, everyone. I will.
Well, why don't you go into it just like right now, right at the start, just in case the reading takes longer than expected, because I want to make sure that gets covered.
I guess in broad strokes, the idea is this, and it depends on the opera because different operas have different levels of who the audience is. So Marriage of Figaro is going to have a much more newbie audience than a Wagner opera, which is much more, it's just more of a seasoned opera goer thing. So the question is, and Wagner I think is trickier in a way because it's just a headier composer. But basically, someone who's going to, how did I say this? All I have is 4 pages. So someone who doesn't want to read 4 pages, like that's too much reading, they're lost.
You don't even consider them for your audience.
No, because they're not going to read anything.
Right.
And then someone, and I know I can't write a book's worth. I don't have 4 pages. But someone who wants to, sorry,
it's New York.
Soundtrack of New York. Anybody who wants to read a book already has and probably isn't going to read the program because they've already read so much. And I can't teach them anything because I don't have a book's worth of pages. So it's kind of the opera goer who wants 4 in-depth pages, who wants about 15 minutes. And then the other thing I'll say is, I think what has made me confident in writing program notes is editing a lot of freelancers' program notes and talking with my boss about what we like and what we don't like. We did that for 5 years before I even wrote a program note, just because it was a part of our job. And I think it's kind of equal parts like history, like creation of the history of the, like how the opera came to be created, and then sort of thematic ideas, and then musical analysis. Because what I really want, what I like as a, exactly.
In the same way. I do it before because my family always arrives so early. I'm the person scrolling through the playbill.
And when I was going to opera and I didn't work at the Met, I never read the program notes because I did so much prep. I used to watch an opera multiple times before I ever saw it performed.
That's true.
Where I was reading program notes was when I was going to the symphony, which I sort of liked, but was not bitten by the symphony bug in the way I was opera. Right. And so what I liked as a reader, still what I like in pieces that I don't know, and what I think people will like is like signposts, like things that your ear can latch onto so that when it arrives, you're like, oh yeah, I know what this is. And opera is so wonky and seems so specific that it's trying to just demystify it and to like guide the reader. Okay, I'll read this now.
No, I just want to make sure I've got it like at a good. So can you read it? You can read that.
I can read it. You're gonna have to do like a.
I'll scroll.
Teleprompter style.
I'll be the scroller. Yeah.
And I hope I don't find mistaken it while I'm reading it.
Oh no, I didn't see anything when I was reading it, so I think you're good. Well, no, actually, who the hell knows? We've already indicated that I can't.
Well, I'll tell you right now.
Mm.
I hesitate to say this, but Marriage of Figaro is still on stage. There's still time to make changes. So if somebody catches an edit, tell me so we can change it.
Fair enough.
All right, you want me to read this?
Let's go.
Okay. Life radiates through Mozart's entire catalog, from the intimate chamber music to the large-scale symphonies and grand masses. But none of his many masterpieces quite capture their composer's abounding optimism, innate joie de vivre, and profound humanism like his operas. Overflowing with deceptively simple yet ravishingly beautiful melody, and presenting finely wrought, incisive characterizations, they reveal the complexities and contradictions of the human condition in ways only possible on the stage. In the ingenious librettist Lorenzo da Ponte, Mozart had the ideal partner, and the three comedies that they created together remain mainstays of every opera company, large and small, the world over. Le Nozze di Figaro, the earliest of these collaborations, owes its success not only to Mozart and da Ponte, but also to 18th century playwright Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais, whose La Folie Journée ou Le Mariage de Figaro, The Crazy Day or The Marriage of Figaro, provided the inspiration. Beaumarchais characterized his wry and rollicking satire as, quote, a play that combines moralities of general effect and of detail spread on a sea of inalterable gaiety, a rather vivacious dialogue whose facility hides its workmanship, an effortlessly spun out intrigue where art conceals art, and which knots and unravels itself ceaselessly through a crowd of comic situations, unquote. Exactly the same can be said of its operatic incarnation. But with his magnificent music, Mozart elevates the source material, heightening the emotional impact and leaving his audiences with a deeper understanding of the play's vibrant characters and of themselves. Arriving in Vienna from provincial Salzburg in 1781, the 25-year-old Mozart was pleased to find a public, and a monarch, who shared his love for entertainment and opera. But to succeed in the great musical capital also meant conforming to the royal taste. 5 years prior, Emperor Joseph II had decreed that only German-language works could be presented at the court Burgtheater, and in 1782, Mozart obliged with his colorful Singspiel Die Entführung aus dem Saral. Before Mozart could build on the opera's success, however, Joseph abruptly reversed course, and bowing to his subjects' preference for light-hearted opera buffa, reconstituted an Italian troupe at the theater. Quote, I have looked through at least 100 libretti and more, but I have scarcely found a single one with which I am satisfied, lamented Mozart in 1783. But with the premiere of Beaumarchais' Le Mariage de Figaro in Paris the following spring, he found his answer. The play centered on the cunning valet Figaro, a semi-autobiographical stand-in for its creator. The name Figaro even derived from the playwright's patronymic Fils Caron, or son of Caron, and followed Le Barbier de Séville of 1775. In Le Barbier, Figaro had conspired with the Count Almaviva to help the nobleman win the young Rosine, but in the sequel, Figaro was at odds with the Count, who had tired of Rosine, now his wife, and instead set his sights on Figaro's fiancée. In both plays, Beaumarchais injected new life into age-old comic tropes, populating the stage with three-dimensional characters and intelligent repartee. But with the second installment, he pushed his indictment of aristocratic privilege to the forefront, culminating in Figaro's vitriolic denunciation of his master. Quote, nobility, fortune, rank, common position, how proud they make a man feel. What have you done to deserve such advantages? Put yourself to the trouble of being born? Nothing more. For the rest, a very ordinary man. Whereas I, lost among the obscure crowd, have had to deploy more knowledge, more calculation, and skill merely to survive than has sufficed to rule all the provinces of Spain for a century. Fearing the play could incite unrest, none other than Louis XVI intervened to delay the premiere. But when it finally reached the stage, it was an immediate smash, quite literally, with 3 unfortunate theatergoers reportedly crushed to death by the crowds clamoring for positions inside the Commedia Française. Joseph II shared his French counterpart's concerns and banned any production from being mounted in Vienna. All the better for Mozart, who saw the play's scandalous reputation as a perfect opportunity to drum up publicity. He surely also saw in Figaro's indignation an echo of his feelings following his service to an overbearing aristocrat. Bristling under the employ of the Prince Archbishop of Salzburg in his youth, he once complained to his father, quote, "The Archbishop is so kind as to add to his luster by his household, robs them of their chance of earning, and pays them nothing," unquote, and declared, not unlike Beaumarchais' barber, quote, "It is the heart that ennobles a man, and though I am no count, yet I have probably more honor in me than many account. Whether a man be a count or a valet, the moment he insults me, he is a scoundrel," unquote. In the uphill political battle to stage an adaptation of Beaumarchais, Mozart found a powerful ally in Da Ponte, who had recently taken up a post as imperial poet, providing libretti for numerous composers at the Burg Theater. Da Ponte had the emperor's ear, and by vowing to, quote, "omit certain scenes and shorten others, and carefully expunge whatever might offend the decency of a theater over which your majesty provides," unquote, he succeeded in winning his blessing to present the opera. Little survives documenting the composition process, but if Da Ponte is to be believed, Mozart finished the score, one of the greatest, most complete masterpieces in the musical canon, in an astounding 6 weeks. Well ahead of its time, though, the opera's sophistication was largely lost on its first Viennese audiences, who were more inclined towards frivolous fare, and the work was withdrawn after only 9 performances. In Prague the following December, the response was decidedly warmer. Quote, "Here they talk about nothing but Figaro. Nothing is played, sung, or whistled but Figaro," Mozart boasted. But for many years that triumph proved an outlier. Only in the 20th century, as audiences and critics alike grasped the full extent of Mozart's genius, did Nozze claim its rightful place as one of the pinnacles of the operatic repertoire. On every level, Le Nozze di Figaro is an opera about transformation, musical, emotional, and societal. While Da Ponte was obliged to excise the play's most scathing critiques of the aristocracy, Beaumarchais' egalitarian ethos endures, particularly in Mozart's handling of the servant class. Figaro's Se vuol ballare in Act 1, in which he declares that if the little count wants to dance, it is Figaro who will call the tune, opens as a mocking minuet, a dance form typically of the elite. But when it suddenly lurches into a lower class contradance, there can be little doubt who will ultimately come out on top. Susanna, too, improves her musical station over the course of the opera, joining the Countess in close harmony in their Act 3 letter duet, and literally standing in for her and donning her clothes in the opera's denouement. And in Figaro's Apriti un po' quegli occhi and Susanna's De vieni non tardar, in the final act, the servants again rise to the musical level of their masters, with both arias preceded by recitatives accompanied by the full orchestra, rather than just continuo, scoring customarily reserved for, quote, serious characters in opera buffa. The opera's treatment of its female protagonists was also revolutionary. Susanna's is easily the longest and most integral role in the cast. In addition to 2 individual arias, she participates in all of the opera's ensembles: 6 duets, 2 trios, 1 sextet, and the extended finales of Acts 2, 3, and 4, and often gets the better of her sparring partners. But if Susanna is the opera's center of gravity, the Countess is its beating heart. Mozart delays her introduction until the top of Act 2, when, after the non-stop frenzy of the first act, the action comes to a standstill with her anguished cavatina, Porgi Amor. With its wrenching vocal line, a melancholy recasting of Figaro's melody from the earlier duet, Se a caso Madama, in which she is referenced for the first time in the opera, Mozart lays out the human cost of the Count's philandering in no uncertain terms. Her aria Dove sono i bei momenti in Act 3 initially follows a similar contour as the Countess reflects on her lost happiness. But as a new resolve comes over her, the orchestra breaks into an animated allegro, and she commits herself to winning back her husband's unfaithful heart. While his predecessors mainly relied on recitative to advance their plots, Mozart consistently keeps the action moving through the musical numbers, particularly the ensembles, which make up an unprecedented half of the score. There is no greater example than the dizzying, glorious finale to Act 2. Comprising 8 sections unfolding over more than 20 minutes of music uninterrupted by recitative, it was a feat never before accomplished. But beyond its scale, the real brilliance of the ensemble is how deftly Mozart sustains the high pace, comic intrigue, and sheer musical variety throughout. Beginning as an agitated duet between the Count and Countess, it seamlessly evolves into a trio when Susanna confounds them both by stepping out of her lady's dressing chamber. Character by character, the ensemble continues to grow, with each new participant entering just as the scene appears to be reaching its resolution, and instead sending it bounding forward with renewed vigor. It finally reaches its climax as a chaotic septet for nearly the entire company, and brings the curtain down with everyone more confused and embattled than ever. Le Nozze di Figaro is also a transformation of opera buffa itself, a genre up until then filled with crowd-pleasing gimmicks, stock characters, and outlandish situations, with any conflict being played for laughs. But with Nozze, Mozart and De Ponte present portraits of nuanced, flawed human beings, and balance the hilarity with scenes of genuine pathos. In just a few hours, audiences are treated to convincing, visceral depictions of love, lust, rage, jealousy, greed, joy, grief, shame, and most essentially, forgiveness. Of course, the greatest act of transformation is left for the end. With his mistreatment of his wife exposed before the entire household, the Count begs the Countess's forgiveness in a phrase of unadorned, aching contrition, Contessa perdono. Her response is similarly understated, but utterly elegant. Più dolcile io sono, e dico di sì. I am sweeter, and I say yes. Closer inspection reveals it as another act of musical metamorphosis, with Mozart returning to the melody of an offhand remark from the Countess in Act 2. Ah, quanto Susanna son dolce di core. Ah, Susanna, how sweet of heart I am. But with only slight alterations, and by transferring the line from minor to major, he transforms the Countess's resignation into sublime reconciliation. For once, a member of the nobility actually behaves nobly, offering hope to all assembled, including the audience, that the power of love can transcend all wrongs, at least for one night.
Woo!
There it is.
Snaps. Very well done. Oh my gosh, there are a million things. When I first read it, I was like agog. And I had so many things I wanted to go over. And listening to you read it, I have so many things I want to go over, but I think we have time to maybe cover like 1 or 2 topics. Yes, all the snaps. That was amazing. Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
I hope
it was so good.
I was thinking 2 things while reading that. One,
yeah,
it was not structured for being read out loud. There's all these. No, I know, but there's just all these M- phrases that make sense when you look at it, but when you.
It made sense while you read it. Don't worry. Oh, Grace says, someone get this man a documentary narrating contract. Because
the other thing that I thank you. Great job. The other thing that I was thinking is, this is cheesy, but I really was thinking this. I hope you guys go listen to Marriage of Figaro now, because my goal is to enrich. In program notes, but everything.
And FYI, we are 10 seconds delayed. So she wrote this before you said that. So that is,
check.
Yeah.
But really, our goal as a team, not just mine, but in everything we do. So that's good. That's good. Our goal as a team in everything we do, and it translates into how I write program notes, is we're trying to enrich the audience's experience of this art form that we love, but that we know can be challenging, intimidating. It's just different than what how most people consume entertainment these days. And so my goal going back to the the audience question is, I want someone. My preference, though I can't tell people how to consume my work, though they can write on it all they want. My preference, actually, I think if someone wrote notes on my work, I'd be flattered. My preference would be for them to read it before the opera, because I want the way I write them is to include like very specific moments so that as the opera is going along, the audience member can go, I remember that from the program note. I get it more. So I know a lot of people read them after because they like to experience it fresh and then digest. That's great too. But in everything, all of the program notes, and everything we write, but particularly program notes, because there's no ticket sale component because they've already bought the ticket. Mm-hmm. My real goal is just to make the audience member the experience of interacting with these real masterpieces, the operas, that much richer. Mm-hmm. And so while I was reading it, I was like, I hope people go listen to the opera now because it's such a good opera. And hopefully, if I've done my job right, it will inspire people. Or, well, I mean, my job, they've already bought the ticket, so I'm not inspiring them, but you guys, I guess. But it just improves the experience of these really great masterpieces.
And I so appreciate it because I know that you said that you kind of construct these so that readers have signposts, and I was like, I loved your highlighting specific. I mean, I don't know if they're called songs in opera, but arias, moments in the musical. In the production.
That's fine.
But I also so appreciated the historical context you gave for it, and the emperors not wanting this class discussion happening. I mean, that is so fascinating. The random moments of kind of feminism for the representation for the women on stage, all of that does add to the depth, which I think is such a power of nonfiction writing, because nonfiction writing is something that I have not partaken in, not writing, but nonfiction reading isn't something I've partaken in much of my life, because I've always had this sort of idea that it's just facts and it's presented almost in an obituary style. But I think, something I've been learning this year is that it is so much artistry and so much care is taken, not in just the function, but in the form. And I mean, I really just want to commend you on your turns of phrase in this program note, because it was beautiful to read. It was also beautiful to listen to. I mean, and I know that you and your editor worked together on it sounds like you guys worked together on the intro.
But you're going to say turns of phrase right now, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't me.
Well, what was this? Who was this? Overflowing, a deceptively simple yet ravishingly beautiful melody. That was you, and presenting finely wrought, incisive characterizations that reveal the complexities and contradictions of the human condition in ways only possible on the stage. Like the melody of that, complexities and contradictions of the human condition. Like, I mean, it's just beautiful.
No, I'll pull back the curtain on that. So that was mostly me, though. Mm-hmm. Human condition. Mm-hmm. I had originally said. The complexity and contradictions of the human soul. Ooh. And he changed the human condition.
It brings me alliteration. I think that was a good change.
So that was him. The rest of it is fine. It's funny so to pull back the curtain on that first paragraph. So I don't think we have time to get into it, but you read the original draft, which the first half is just, it's much more dense. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that my boss was saying is basically what he said is the first half is really dense, and then you get to the opera stuff and it sings all the way through. Clearly,
sings is such a great way of describing your writing.
Right. Pun intended.
No, I'm serious.
But the point was, so the beginning he said is it's too heavy. We don't get to the opera, and we don't communicate to people early enough that this opera is great. Mm-hmm. Because this is something I'm working on, is I'm a very linear writer. Okay. And I'm very much, Mozart was born, then he did, it's and then he arrived, and then he had the idea. And so the thing that people actually care about, the opera, ends up to be at the second half, because I am too linear. And that So what
But
he
that's,
said,
that's the beauty of a rough draft, though, is that it gets that tendency. You get to express that, and then that's where you
yeah,
fly.
but it's still pretty linear. I mean, this is something I'll work on in future. I'm glad that we're be feeling insightful, or I'm glad you feel we're insightful. But like, so it's still linear, but it was more linear and dense. And the other thing that I opened with was a pull quote, like a block
I
quotation
saw that.
of
Yes.
Beaumarchais, and it was even longer. And I don't mind the old-fashioned language because I think it's sort of quaint, but I do get the point that most people going to Marriage of Figaro are not wonky academics, and if they read this boring, not boring, but this like overwritten on purpose quote, it's going to be off-putting. And so he's like, we shouldn't start with this. See how we can.
I think you have it placed well now, because your writing is so approachable while still so beautiful, and so it gets kind of, it's like the amuse-bouche, and you're in it, and so that way when you're presented with that quote, you've already committed, and you kind of are in that headspace rather than just jumping right in.
And that's all him. That was not on me. And then the other thing that I had in the original draft was I had some quotations from music. I mean, I had a quote from Dent, like from 1947, and because they speak to me. And his whole point, which I think is an apt one, which is like,
I don't think that I can put them up side by side, Devesha, because can I present multiple things? Maybe I can.
As you figure that out,
You talk.
Like I had quotes from musicologists that I liked, and what he said was basically, we shouldn't be quoting analysis in our analysis. It's sort of clunky, and we should just, unless it's like really snappy, which these were not the snappiest. I just liked what they said. He was saying basically communicate them through your writing. So he said, take those out and find a way to say the things that they're saying yourself. Right. And he had a few other edits on throughout, the rest of it, but it was major things. That was the major thing, was the opening, and finding a ways to trim, to really condense the first half. Not that much. I mean, it's still a lot there, you saw, but it was just weightier and just really keep it breezier. So I did all of that, but I still didn't know how to start the thing. And I had the clock was like,
yeah.
I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I was like fueled by frustration and and I just wrote that opening sentence.
Incredible.
Life radiates through Mozart's entire catalog, but none. And then the one thing about that opening sentence that he changed is I had something like, I don't even have it in front of me, but it says nothing communicates the something.
Here, I've got it back.
Thank you.
Here, none of his
not quite capture the abounding optimism, innate joie de vivre, and profound humanism like his operas. And what I had originally said was nothing quite captured the composer's abounding optimism, innate joy, and profound humanism.
He wanted you to up it a bit, not just joy, but joy de vivre.
Well, that's the right turn of phrase. It's right, because it's not just that he was joyful; he loved life.
Yes.
And so that's right. But I didn't come. And then I had that moment. I don't know if this happens to you all, but I saw it and I was like, why didn't I think of that? That's so good. And I feel a little sheepish, being like, oh, I wish, because I want to be perfect. And that's obviously not possible. There's this feeling, at least I have, that like I'm the writer, it's mine. And if anybody fixes it, then it's less mine. And I think that's not true.
It's definitely not true. Not to be like so definitive, but I'm right here with Katie and that working with others, helping to tone and shape writing into its sharpest point. I fully believe before I joined YouTube, I really believed that writing was a solitary hobby, very romantic in that sense, that it was the lonely person's task and the introvert's pastime. I fully believe that actually writing and storytelling in fiction and nonfiction forms should be a collaborative exercise.
If you want, I mean, I don't want to. You can. I don't know what you want to focus on. You can put the other one up here if you want.
I cannot. I can't physically figure out how to put it back up.
Even the other.
Because I have
not even just side by side. You can just put the other one up if you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm outing myself for less good writing.
Oh, you're good.
But I'm fine. The end product is good, if I say so myself. So, and it's also funny because I wrote that first paragraph and I just was not feeling like I just didn't know if it was good or not. And but it was too late and we sent it. And I just thought like, I don't even know if this is good anymore. And I sent it to my dad to read and he read this version first and he was like, this is really clunky. And then I sent him the other one and I thought I didn't know what he was going to say. And he was like, oh yeah, it's much better. And I couldn't see it because to me, the first one feels too Spark Notes, the first paragraph, because it's very much like Mozart is good. But I have to realize that the audience for Marriage of Figaro may have never been to an opera before. They're not thinking like, they almost need a Wikipedia page. It needs to be obviously more curated and more artful than that. But I think it's fine to start. I think I'm too worried about starting with a really good hook. And sometimes that can actually be clunky. So anyway, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but basically what you see here is I opened with the quote, which is also longer. And then I said, these words purposely encapsulate, but Ryan rollicking satire is already there.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like your voice is so in this and
even there, it radiates with the composer's zeal for life and profound humanism. So you see the building blocks are there. But then I have this dent quote. We must never lose sight of the fact that the operas and the pianoforte concertos are the works in which we meet Mozart most closely. They are the ones which represent his individual personality most intimately and completely, which I hope people don't accuse me of plagiarism because it's not, I didn't plagiarize that, but it's taking the sentiment and I don't know. Do you think I plagiarized?
No, I don't.
But I think his language is very 1947, and we don't live in 1947. But then you have here, right, arriving in cosmopolitan Vienna from provincial Salzburg. So a lot of it is the same. But if you scroll down a little, so then there's this whole side note, right? Like, while he searched for his material, he couldn't ignore the notoriety that this other composer was having with The Barber of Seville. And this was this play about, and so it just was much, everything here is more dense, but it's pretty much there.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's the point of a first draft. And it is actually really, Grape says it's not plagiarism, it's paraphrasing.
Which I think is allowed.
Yes, absolutely.
And actually, I mean, I think that's partially our job as program writers is we are not supposed to break any ground, really.
Yeah. Kagan says this really does show how good of a writer you are to infuse the rest of the program notes with dense original sentiment and making it accessible to the normies. So,
but we're not really supposed to break any ground. We're not supposed to.
You're not historians. You're not writing a thesis. You are introducing.
No, right. We're supposed to distill.
That's a great way of phrasing it.
So, yeah. Well,
I think you distilled it.
Thank you. And again, and I'll just thinking about sources. I think I probably pulled on 15 sources or more. I way overread. But the other thing that's good about over-researching, I guess I'm curious if this happens in fiction as well, is like you start to hear the echoes. And so it's like, oh, this person is talking about it, and then, oh, this person's saying the same things. And this person, oh, that must be really important if 4 different people are all mentioning the same thing.
Kind of like the book that you had. The book that your person gave you?
Oh, this one. They were mentioning him. But yeah, exactly. But I also mean mentioning ideas. Like
okay.
Yes.
Like, what you're saying, yeah.
If a few people are all mentioning that Save Vol Ballare is a minuet, which was a courtly dance, then that's important. Like that's a key piece of evidence that Mozart's doing this thing. And the other thing I do, which I didn't mention, is while I'm doing all this research, I'm listening to the opera a lot.
Oh, that's
and I try to find many different performances. I listen to it a lot. I really have it in my ears. I pretty much, and even when I was doing all the Mozart research, all the Note research, I was also just listening to a bunch of Mozart. And I try to just listen to, I end up just listening exclusively to whatever composer I'm writing about. Not just Nozze di Figaro, but I didn't know Mozart's chamber music that much. So I was listening to a ton of Mozart chamber music just to be in the world. And then I do this, after I've done all of the research, but before I take the notes, I watch the full opera with, so I have, depending on the composer, but I have books that like are much more thorough. So like, there's this musicologist Newman who does a lot. He really works on Wagner, but he has very like theme by theme analysis and really in-depth books with very in-depth synopses, like 40 pages about what happens and talking about it beat by beat. Or like Verdi, this Julian Budden is like but I think that's how you pronounce it, is very in-depth, like 80 pages about Aida. And so what I'll do is with whatever book I've chosen as the in-depth one, I'll watch the opera while reading it and like taking notes and really getting the finer points.
Amazing. No, I love that. Has there ever been an opera where you're like, I never want to hear this again?
Well, no, because the operas that I write about are the masterpieces of the repertoire. Like I'm not getting crap. Like I'm getting no, like I'm not, and I'm picking the operas.
No, that's true though. Yeah, that's.
I have had experiences where I'm so excited about the I'm so in it, and I kind of actually get addicted to the opera. Like I can't not listen to it while I'm doing it. But then sometimes I'll go to the performance and be like, oh, this again? Even though I'm like I've been listening to it for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Not straight, obviously, but that's all I've been listening to. And then I go to the performance and it's like, oh yeah. Especially, I shouldn't say this publicly because I'll get it. Because I work.
It's just you, me, and our 24 closest friends.
No, but especially if like whatever performance I go to is not because I'm listening to the greatest performances of all time. And if the performance is good, the Met doesn't do a bad performance, but whatever, you know what I'm saying. Then I'm like, but I heard that great recording, or I don't know. And you also build up an ideal of what the opera should sound like because I'm in it so much.
Lynn needs clarification about your work.
You are correct. It all happens outside of my normal work.
You get a bonus for doing these?
No, but I don't have to do them. I should stay. Like, this is
you
all.
You can write it down as a charitable contribution on your channel.
No.
You said it's a nonprofit. The Met is a 501c3. I bet you could.
No, it's part of my job. You
don't get paid for it.
I get paid. I think it's different. I think that maybe your perspective is a little different. Like that's
definitely a conversation within our community as well.
Yeah, but I think it's different when I'm salaried at the Met. Like everything I do is for the Met. And so they treat me very well. I also get, healthcare benefits and paid vacations. Like I have a job and
you would get all of those things even if you didn't write the program notes because you volunteered to write the program.
I would. Right, but they let me do it. There's no need for me to do it.
Believe me, there are so many people here who know exactly what you're saying. I'm just a Catholic queen.
Anyway, I'm just conscious of I don't want to paint the Met in a bad light because I don't think that's like I just love doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm well enough compensated for my work. I'm working in opera full time at the greatest opera house in the world. Yeah. So I'm fine.
On that.
But you guys, I'm sure you have weeks that are more than 40 hours of work.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that's the other, you have to realize that there are some weeks where I don't work. Well, I work 40 hours.
You're right.
And work, I work, but we go to the office and then, we go out to lunch with a friend, or someone comes to my office and we chat for 20 minutes before so it's the flexibility and the confidence the Met has in us that we're going to get the job done means that sometimes you have to get the job done outside of the 40 hours. But I also get to go to opera for free. Like that
was one of the things I wanted to ask you about was how many operas do you think you go to in a season?
Somewhere between 50 and 60 performances.
multiple a week because the season isn't even a year long.
Yeah,
You're
the
going
season's
multiple
about
times a week.
32, 33. So yeah, usually I'm there 2 to 3 times a week.
Wow.
And I like to see every opera at least twice in
Yeah.
a season. I like, if we have a different cast, I like to see each cast at least once.
Wow.
But
your passion is so inspiring. Like this.
No,
I'm serious. This thing that happened to you when you were 12, and like, imagine 12-year-old Chris knowing that this is the life that he was leading.
Oh, it's great.
Like, yeah.
I guess the reason I don't have, like, I don't want to say boast, but I didn't pick this passion. It just happened to me. It's just good fortune. It's just a blessing. It's not. I hear from people regularly that they wish they had a passion like I have a passion, but I didn't do anything to earn this. Like the passion part. Yes, I went to school. I worked hard. But
your father did by taking a 12-year-old kid.
My dad did by bringing me all the time. My parents did by, supporting me and encouraging me, and I had good teachers and all of these things. But but the passion part, like, I guess I don't know how that can, like, I didn't do anything, and I don't know that anybody.
Chris, I mean, you didn't. Okay, yes,
develop the passion.
Yes,
I ran with the passion. Many people have harebrained ideas.
Something. That's what I'm saying. Is that I think a lot of people are kissed by a muse the way that you were, but not everybody then runs away with it. So I think you should commend yourself for the dedication, because I don't think a lot of 12-year-olds out there have the, like, not to, like, make it seem like overblown, but, like, the courage to invest in opera as a passion. That is, I remember it being very othering when we were in high school, and that was something that you had to defend against.
That's true, but I didn't have a choice. I don't know.
Well, I know that, but I mean, but you
feel like it's because I liked it.
Yes, and you knew yourself, and you, like, stayed true to yourself, which I think is, like,
I want to talk about that, though. I do want to defend again the Met, because I see Lynn says
I wasn't even going to acknowledge it. I wasn't even going to bring it up.
It's just different than that, because I don't know. I don't work by the hour. That's the other thing. Like, I don't go in on time a lot of the time, and then I stay late, or I don't, or whatever, so I don't think about it in terms of hours. I think about it in terms of getting the job done. Like, I'm just trying to say I'm not abused in any sense. Like, I love my job, and I do all sorts of things. The other thing, and I will talk to you, I really want to go to the point, because I think it's something I've been thinking about.
And also, I was supposed to meet somebody for dinner 7 minutes ago. So
okay, well, this one will be really quick. But I just also want to say, like, what I have learned in my career, which I can hear the critics saying, like, that's how they get you. But what I have really learned is that I have stepped up for things, volunteered, because either I thought it was fun or whatever, and it has grown my career. And I do think that's something that people don't. Maybe now I feel like I'm like a baby, like I'm like a crusty old person. But, like, I do think that make like taking initiative and not getting compensated or rewarded for it right way, but doing it with passion and like that it almost always pays off, I think, in the long run. And many of the opportunities that I have now is because you guys don't want that. Many of them, you'll just have to have me back, Wallace.
100%. I want you back. Yes.
Many of the opportunities that I have now that I love, like, we didn't talk about this, but I went on tour with the Met. Asia. That was because I stepped up and did other things. I just want to say the one thing about the high school thing, which I was reflecting on it recently. Within the last few years, have people my age taken a genuine interest in the things that I have always found interesting? Because when I was in high school, even though there were people who, like, we were friends and we got along, but there were very few people who had it was still weird that I liked opera as a 14-year-old. It was like, I was like, can you believe that? Not like I was bullied for it or anything, but it was just like, I was a curiosity. Yeah. And then I went to college, and the idea was like, now that you're in New York, and I met some people like me, but most people, even at fancy pants Columbia, were getting drunk and hooking up and going to pop music and all these things. Like it still wasn't, I was, I was still like a curiosity. And even in my early 20s, it was weird. And only in the last few years have I not only, and when I started at the Met, I was the youngest person. And so, yes, I became friends. I've always been friendly with older people because they have the interests I have, but people my age never really had my interests. So then I started at the Met, and everybody, the closest person in age who really liked opera was, 10 years older. And now there is a whole group of us at the Met in our early 30s. And like, we traveled last year to an opera festival in New York. Like I never traveled with friends before. And we went to a friend's house. Like we hang out, we go to trivia nights. We have a work softball team. Like I'm in the group with people my age and they actually like what I like. And friends of mine who aren't at the Met are like jealous when I bring another friend to a performance. And they're like, why didn't you bring me to the opera? And can you imagine at TAF people being like, why didn't you invite me to no, they didn't. They were like, oh, that's cool. But it was not only in the last few years I really mean this, have people grown like to my level in terms of perspective. Anyway, that's all. I was going to say something.
I completely understand you. I remember talking with one of my cousins earlier this summer, and she was like, she's in her 30s now, and she's just like, life is so peaceful. While it's like, she was like, I never understood when we were younger, but like, because she and I, we've always been really good friends, but she was like going to football games, going to fraternities and sororities on the weekends and stuff. And I was never doing any of that. And she mentioned how she was like, I just love that you'll come over now, even though I'm like a mom with a kid and like we're just sitting and chatting. I love that you're okay doing that. I'm like, girl, this is always where I've been. You're the one who met me now. Like that's
you can attest to this, but I have gone to like reunions at high school, and I've been to a few weddings from people in high school who are getting married. And what people always say to me, and they're almost a little surprised, is they go, you haven't changed at all since high school. And they have changed a little. And I think like, yeah, because I was a 30-year-old.
You were fully formed at 13.
No, that's not true. Like I definitely have grown up, but I just think, so I don't know how we got onto that, but I do feel like someone said like
13 going on 30.
But it's true. And like,
like, oh, actually, these are great things.
Exactly. Well, the thing about opera though, is I do get it. First of all, it's not free. It's not even, it's not totally like there are things that are popular in this world that are much more, I mean, Beyonce tickets are much more expensive than opera tickets, and Broadway tickets are usually more expensive, and baseball games, these things that people don't care about paying the money for. But opera is a cost, but it's also like an intellectual like investment. And I don't mean to say that in a pretentious way. Like we are used to consuming entertainment that is like junk food for our brains, which I think is just a problem generally, but especially as teenagers. It's just true of all teenagers. Like opera takes a level of like slowing down, and because to sing a word, to hear music is not as fast as text. For instance, like Verdi has Otello, an adaptation of Othello, and they say it's about 20% of the text because you just can't fit, and it's a 3-hour opera. You just can't fit, like to sing a single word takes much longer than speech. So the audience in a bit, and it's not hard, just has to understand that it takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more meditative. It's thrilling though. Don't get me wrong. It's not boring. Like I'm not trying to dissuade people, but I think that's the thing that young people particularly have trouble with, but people in their 30s and 40s, like
absolutely. I've been brain rotted. I've been brain rotted by my phone. And with that, kind of, that sentiment, we're gonna
everyone go out and listen to Marriage of Figaro, please.
Yes, Chris, thank you so much for coming on my channel. I think the voice of the people has spoken. We have to have you back. I really do want to dive into your article about the Asia experience, because the Met sent Chris and their whole company on a full Asian tour for how many weeks? Was it like
2 weeks?
2 weeks?
Our orchestra went for 2 weeks.
And I just, I want to get your whole thoughts on travel writing and everything like that too. So we need to schedule another one of these. Thank you everybody in the chat coming and for being so welcoming and for answering or for asking your questions. I'm sorry that I didn't get to all of the comments, but I saw them all and I appreciated all of them. So also, I'm spent all that time. Oh, Katie Ann says, I've absolutely loved this. Thank you for doing this, Christopher. And that's so
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for hosting. I've literally loved every second. Thank you, Katie, for coming and being such an engaged audience member. I really appreciate you. I am embarrassed because I spent all that time making the intro. I don't have an outro, so I think I'm gonna just play one of the outros for my D&D campaign.
Can I say something? Can I say two quick things?
Yes, of course.
They're real quick because I know you have to run.
Yeah.
If people want to read more of my writing, I don't really have
I'll put links down in the description of the video.
Okay, great.
Not the PDFs, but I linked to your Instagram. I linked to the Met Opera, and I also linked to an article I found that you wrote on the Met Opera. So
yeah, great. So I will say, if you want to read the Marriage of Figaro again, like if you just go to the Marriage of Figaro page at the Met, you can. There's a link that says read program. You can read the program note again if you want to listen. And I have one about Fidelio if you care. And then it's kind of hard to find, but if you go to the Met menu, there's like discover articles. There's a bunch of articles. I didn't write them all, but you can find them anyway. And then also, if you haven't, you should buy Wallace's book, A Dark and
Oh my gosh, no. Every single person
celebrate,
here.
no, and celebrate halfway to Halloween. That's why I'm wearing my Halloween bow tie. And because it's great and spooky and fun. I was just telling someone yesterday that they should read it because I said I was coming on this. It's like magical, spooky, romantic, witchy, autumnal, cozy, great. I just want to say, I know that's not what it's about, but I will say it. Like, you knew that come on, Siren, or I'm making a plug here. Saved by the Siren. No, I was going to do the book. You knew I was going to do the book. We talked about me doing the book talk before I even read the book. And you wrote a note saying, thanks for doing this. I know this isn't what you would normally read. And I loved it. I just loved it. And I was totally hooked. And so if anybody, I'm sure people here have already read it, but read it again, buy it again. If your copy doesn't say USA Today bestseller, you should buy another copy. And if you haven't read it, if anyone's on here because I posted about being here, you really should read it because it's fun and cozy. And I said this to you at the talk, having grown up in New England, the descriptions of that aspect of autumn in New England were like pitch perfect. You could feel it. So it is May, but if you want to get in the spooky season now, like it really.
If you're in Australia, perfect time.
But like put on a pumpkin spice candle and drink some tea. And I mean, it's really, Oh, and there's a paperback, which you can pre-order now.
Coming out in August. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Chris. That was so sweet of you. I really have to run. So, we're going to switch to the Blank Page Tavern because this is the only place I have outros for. And ignore this outro. This is just us. This is just me ending the stream. All right. Bye, everybody.